Hey everyone, Jake here for ExtremeTerrain, and in this video we're taking a look at the PowerStop Z36 Extreme Truck and Tow front and rear brake rotor and pad kit fitting 2018 and newer JL Wrangler Rubicons and Saharas, excluding 4xe and 392 models. This is the perfect kit for you if you really want to work your JL hard, or you just want to make sure that you can stop no matter what you've got on board or behind you. This really is the ultimate upgrade for your brakes, and it's going to tick all of the boxes for you. Whether you're hauling, towing, hitting the trails, or just driving in traffic, it's a high quality kit that doesn't compromise and gives you everything you need to stop on a dime. The kit that we have here gives you essentially everything you need for a standard brake job. You've got front and rear rotors and pads, but these aren't just stock replacements because they have a lot more stuff built in. Starting with the rotors, these are of the drilled and slotted variety. Now the goal with these is to dissipate more heat than your factory standard solid rotors. And it's something that sees a lot of varied use like a Rubicon might, especially if you're loaded down with lots of gear. The additional heat dissipation these will provide won't go unnoticed. Heat is the enemy of braking performance, and having those slots and drilled holes here in the faces of the rotors gives that heat plenty of places from which to escape by channeling it off the face of the rotors and away from the pads. If you've ever had brakes get hot on you, you know that's not a fun experience, and that's exactly what these seek to avoid. And of course, rotors can only do so much without having good pads to back them up. The brake pads in this kit are really the heroes. The Z36 pads are made using PowerStop's own proprietary carbon fiber ceramic compound. Now these are designed for severe duty such as hauling or towing, and again these are going to be really good at dissipating that heat while maintaining everyday drivability. And unlike a lot of other performance pads, these don't compromise in everyday usability, so they don't make a ton of noise or brake dust when you're just driving normally, and they're going to perform well when you really need them. In fact, PowerStop claims that these are nearly dust-free. Now no brake pad is entirely dust-free, but these are a super low dust formula. It's going to keep your wheels a lot cleaner. And there's no compromise in brake performance or feel. The pads are thermal scorched for faster brake-in. They feature stainless steel shims on the back for excellent heat dissipation and nearly silent operation. Plus they are chamfered and slotted too to cut down on noise. When I say that these don't compromise, I mean that entirely. Now I have a set of Z36s on my own truck at home, and I can tell you from first-hand experience, both in daily driving and heavy-duty towing situations, these are everything PowerStop claims and then some. The rotors are made using G3000 metallurgy, and while that sounds like some kind of fancy schmancy buzzword, what it really means is that there's a higher percentage of carbon in the cast iron itself. So while these are made from cast iron like stock rotors, there's more carbon in it. And like the veins and holes in the faces of the rotors, that composition is extremely helpful in dissipating heat. These rotors also, as you might be able to tell, have a silver zinc plating. That's going to help prevent against rust and corrosion, so they're going to look good and perform well for a long time. Those pads again use that proprietary carbon fiber ceramic compound we were just talking about. Again, going to give you excellent heat dissipation with consistent performance and feel, low dust, and quiet operation. Now PowerStop also includes all new stainless steel hardware in the kit, so short of brake lines and calipers, this is pretty much everything you need for a complete brake system overhaul, and it's really high quality stuff too. Plus you even get some high temp lubricant included in the kit too, so you really don't even need to get anything other than your tools to get this done. Pricing for the kit comes in at about $575, and while that's not what you would necessarily call cheap, it is actually the most affordable front and rear kit with drilled and slotted rotors that are available for the JL. Good brakes rarely come cheap, and this is not a place you want to skimp if your rig sees a lot of usage. It's worth reiterating here that there's a lot of good research and development baked into the rotors and pads, and again, this comes with everything you need to get this job done and also vastly improve the braking performance of your Jeep. There are a few places on my own vehicles where I believe it's worth spending the big bucks or even stretching the budget a little to get something really nice. And again, I'm running a set of Z36s on my own truck, so from first-hand experience, these are absolutely worth the extra cost over a standard set of pads and rotors. Installation comes in at a soft 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter. Now installing this kit is definitely a job you can accomplish at home. It's going to take you probably around 3 hours or so to complete. Even if you haven't done brakes before, this is a straightforward job and something you can tackle yourself if you're willing to spend the time. Not much more I can say about it here, so with that, we're going to head on out to the shop and walk you through the process step by step.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a brake caliper compressor, a ratchet, flathead screwdriver, caliper hook, pry bar, a hammer, a 17mm wrench, 18mm ratcheting wrench, an extension, T30 torque socket, 13 and 21mm sockets, brake clean, and a microfiber towel.
What's up guys? Today we're installing some brakes on our Wrangler, so let's get started.
So now starting off on the front, the first thing I'm gonna do is grab a caliper hook. I'm gonna put this up onto the spring so that we can hang the caliper once we remove it, so we're not putting tension on our brake line. And then next thing I'm gonna do is take a T30 torque socket to remove this rotor set screw so that we don't have to deal with it later. So now we can come to our two caliper mounting bolts, and we're gonna take a 13mm socket to remove these. We're gonna pop off the clamshell and then hang it up on our hook. And then just wiggle that clamshell free. And then hang it on your hook. Next, we'll take a 21mm socket to remove our two bracket mounting bolts. And then just get a hand on your bracket before you remove this one so it doesn't just fall off. And then you can remove your bracket. So now with our caliper fully removed, you can take a hammer to beat off your rotor if it's really seized onto the hub here. Now ours just kind of fell off when I pulled that bracket off, so we can pull this straight back. But if you're going with the hammer method, just give it a few whacks all the way around the rotor and that should pop free for you. Now moving on to the rear, we're just gonna do the same thing as the front with a couple different size bolts. So grab your caliper hook. I'm gonna put this up in the hole on the frame. We'll see how much room we have. We might have to move it down to the sway bar. And then we'll take that T30 torque socket and remove our rotor set screw. Now we'll grab a 13mm socket to remove our two caliper mounting bolts. Now we can take a 13mm socket and a 17mm wrench to remove our caliper bolts. You're gonna need the 17mm wrench on that nut to prevent it from spinning when you're trying to loosen the bolt. You're gonna need a pretty thin wrench for this. Your standard one might be a little too thick to get in between. Now our clamshell is pretty stuck on there, so I'm gonna use a pry bar just to kind of get under the lip to pop it back. You wanna make sure that your parking brake isn't on before you do this. Just pry that back, wiggle it the rest of the way off, and get it up on our hook. Next, we can remove our two caliper bracket mounting bolts. Now we don't have a lot of room to get a tool in here, so I'm gonna take an 18mm ratcheting wrench to make my life a little easier. Then once again, just get a hand on that bracket before you fully remove the bolt. So now our rotor on the rear is a little more stuck on there. So once again, you can take a hammer and smack around it to break it free. Now we're gonna be reusing our rotors, so we don't wanna damage them. So I'm gonna take a rubber mallet. There's a little cutout for where the inside brake pad went. I'm just gonna give it some taps, spin it around, and just work it off that way. just wiggle it the rest of the way off. So now we can grab our caliper brackets and swap out our pads and our clips. Now I've got a front and a rear here just to show you both, but they are gonna be the same process, even down to the clips that look identical. So we're gonna pop our pads out. I've got a flathead screwdriver just in case we need it to pop out the clips. Sometimes they can be really stuck in there. And then we'll put our new clips in just by matching them up to the old ones, lube them up, and slide our pads in. So now we can just push our pads out. And then remove our clips. Do that same thing for your other ones. And now we're just gonna press in our new clips in that same orientation. Make sure they're fully seated in there. Do the same thing for your other ones. And once you have all your clips in there, you can take your packet of lube that's included in the kit, and we're just gonna lube up the inside here where the pad's gonna slide on. And then once we have all of them lubed up, we can slide our pads in. And then repeat that process for your other set of brackets, and we'll get these back on the Jeep. So now we're ready to assemble our new brakes. First thing we're gonna do is clean off our rotor. I've got it backwards on the hub first so that we can clean the inside, and then we'll flip it around, clean the outside, and put our set screw back in. So grab some brake clean and a clean microfiber towel, spray it down and wipe it down. press it up against the hub, take that T30 torque socket, thread in that set screw, and then just snug it up with the ratchet. Now we can slide our bracket over the rotor. You might have to spread your pads out a little bit. And then just line up your holes, grab your bolt, thread that into place. And then once you have your bolts started, take your 21mm socket and tighten them down. And then you're just gonna pinch your brake pads together and get them seated against the rotor so that we can get our caliper on. So now we're ready to pop our caliper back on the bracket. Now before we do that, you're gonna have to take a brake caliper compressor tool to push that piston back in so that we have enough clearance to get it over our pads. So we can just pop this in, line it up, press the handle in, and that'll compress our piston. And then we'll pop our caliper off the hook. Slide it over our pads, and then we can reinstall our bolts. And then just take your 13mm socket, tighten these down. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Now moving on to the rear, once again, it's gonna be pretty much the same as the front. I've got the rotor backwards on the hub first so we can clean the inner side. Flip it around, clean the outside, and put that set screw back in. Brake clean, clean microfiber towel, spray it and wipe it. Then we can flip that around. And then take your set screw and your T30 torque socket. Get it all lined up and thread it in. And then fully tighten it down with a ratchet. Now we can grab our bracket, slide that over the rotor, get our mounting holes lined up, and thread our bolts in. And then grab your 18mm ratcheting wrench, tighten them down. And then just go ahead and pinch your pads together, get them up against the rotor, and then we can compress the piston in our caliper and get that slid on. So now we'll just compress that piston. This one's a single piston, so I've got a different attachment on here now. So we'll slide that in, get it all lined up. Get that retracted into our caliper, and then we can slide this over the pads and thread in our 2 bolts. And now grab your 13mm socket and 17mm wrench and tighten these down. and then repeat that same process on the other side.
That's going to wrap it up here for our review and install of the PowerStop Z36 Extreme Truck and Tow front and rear brake rotor and pad kit, fitting 2018 and newer JL Wrangler Rubicons and Saharas, excluding 4xe and 392 models. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, for all things Jeep, be sure to keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.